Hello everyone, we're Group 11 and we're going to present our work about sustainable agriculture. My name is Mafalda and I will be talking about waste, bio-waste and composting and how our trash can actually be useful.
My name is Thais. I will be talking about the three core elements. The first, the importance of electricity in general. The second, renewable energies. The third is the scientific explanation.
My name is Guilherme and I will be talking about sustainability and explain you a little more things about other types of sustainable agriculture.
And I'm Daniela, and I'll be the one starting the presentation by talking about industrial agriculture. Here is our index. So, to start this presentation, as I said, I'm going to introduce to you the concept of industrial agriculture. And I want you to keep this question in mind. How do the biggest productions bring the biggest consequences? By definition, industrial agriculture is a mass production of crops and cattle that aims to provide food at lower costs for consumers. This type of agriculture, or this idea of agriculture, was strongly boosted in what came to be known as the Green Revolution. The expression Green Revolution is used to represent the transformation of agriculture um, into of agriculture. Wait. Globally through the development and incorporation of new technologies into agriculture production. These new technologies started to show up for the first time in Mexico and in the USA. After the Second World War, the need to ensure large-scale food production was called into a question. So the decision was made to implement a technological structure where the machinery and the fertilizers had the biggest impact. Although there were good intentions, and it's true that it started to provide food for the growing population, the consequences started to show up. And here's a list of them. The first one is deforestation, where the industrial agriculture is to blame by 80% of the global deforestation. And in Portugal, it's just the fourth country with the most deforestation, which it's a lot. The second one is resistance of pests and weeds to chemicals. And why is that? If you remember, I told you that in Green Revolution, they implemented a new technological structure where the machinery and the fertilizers had the biggest impact. But they started to use it way too much of fertilizers and pesticides, and that led to soil adaptation, leading to greater damage, as you can imagine. Then we have soil degradation, impact, or in this case, destruction of natural habitats, water pollution, and climate change. I decided to put these two together because the reason they started to happen is the same, and it's due to the improper use of carbon and fossil fuels emissions. Last but not least, we have the impact on human health. As I was researching for this topic, I saw reports saying that over 20,000 people have died due to the improper use of fertilizers. And that's a big number, so we can't look at it as a joke. So, after all this information, can we say that industrial agriculture is bad? Taking all these consequences into account, and since industrial agriculture is considered one of the biggest threats of biodiversity conservation, yeah, I think we can say that it's bad. And so, some ecological activists promote more sustainable ways of agriculture. Therefore, thoughtful decisions must balance the power of industrial agriculture to meet the needs of hunger and ways to keep the environment as healthy as possible. Because to improve the planet, we need a complete change, and we're not ready for that complete change yet. And now,
Well, with that being said, it's my turn to talk and teach you a little more things about sustainable agriculture and sustainability. Well, to explain you better this problem, I must get to the root of the problem and the start of the solution. And as our most environmental problems, it all started with the first industrial revolution, where we were overproducing everything. Because we have and still have this need of instant satisfaction of our needs and desires. But for the first time in forever, by the decades of the 60s and the 70s, the world's ecological consciousness started to emerge and being taken more seriously by top organizations such as ONU. And by the year of 1972, the first worldwide conference titled as The Men in the Environment of the United Nations took place in Stockholm. And later in 83 there was another conference, this time called the Worldwide Commission about Environment and Development, which was very crucial to this sustainability journey, since it brought to life the Brundtland Report. And you may be questioning yourself, what is it? Well, the concept of sustainable development made its first appearance and started its historical journey with this report that set objectives that we still dream to follow to this day. And to achieve the goal of sustainability and sustainable agriculture, we must have some alternatives. And there are a couple other alternatives of agriculture that not only preserve the planet as they restore the soil's health. And you might have known some of them, such as biological agriculture. And biological agriculture focuses on maximizing the microbes' activity on the soil by providing them and granting a healthy soil. It uses modern technology and new methods only if they do not harm the natural systems. It is a great way of agriculture since it keeps the balance of the biological, chemical, and physical parts of the soil. And it has some benefits as well, such as reducing the chemical dependency, turning farming into a safer workplace, restoring the mineral and microbial balance in the soil, and farms who practice it become more sustainable. Then we have permaculture, which is basically plants so that everyone can practice it in multiple places such as houses, gardens, communities, and even businesses. It rethinks the way that we use our resources by using them the less possible to obtain the most out of them. It is a great way of using nature to obtain some really good quality food without harming it. And it can be either applied on a smaller scale or on an even bigger scale. Then last but not least, I chose to talk about natural farming, which can be a little unstable since it completely relies on nature. And I mean completely. And as most types of agriculture, there must be a good soil management and some research on what to plant. It can also be called as a do nothing agriculture since you only need to plant, water it, and wait for the best. It is also a good way of obtaining good quality food since it doesn't use chemicals or fertilizants. Well, I presented to you three ways of sustainable agriculture, and even with a couple more ways existing, most of our countries just rather follow their economical ideas that can be pretty irrational sometimes, just so they can be the one who produces the most. And these alternatives end up being discarded because of the Common Agriculture Policy. This policy was created in order to accelerate the economical growth by maximizing the agricultural production using industrial farming technology. Well, it has been clear that nature's biggest enemy is specialization of a certain production. It is just risky and dangerous. And this fight for a more sustainable world might seem like sometimes it will never end, but we cannot always see the bad side of things. It is true that nowadays we have more resources to become a more sustainable planet, such as renewable energies that are more and more present on our lives each day and are definitely a big ally of sustainable agriculture. Even though chances are small, giving up is not an option. With that being said, I pass my word to Thais.
With the comfort provided by electricity is and with obtaining ease, there has been a rise in energy consumption in our economic ever since decades. As a response to this waning demand for electricity, different technologies have been used in the production of energy using different sources. These energy sources are divided into renewable and non-renewable. Renewable, for example, net solar energy, wind energy, hydropower, and biomass power plants. In non-renewable, natural gas, energy nuclear, and coal. Due to increased electricity consumption, the production, the use of fossil fuels, in the process for producing electricity has led to increase in the greenhouse gas emissions, contributing to increase of global warming. This is in general consensus that one of the ways to reduce greenhouse gas will be by increasing energy efficiency and increase energy production from renewable sources. Renewable energy sources can be found in nature such as sun, winds, and even organic matter. Depending on the power, depending on the power source, different technologies are used. The most common are the water plants, solar parks, among others. While analyzing the chart, we conclude that the solar panel has dropped the price for price for photovoltaic panels has dropped significantly. Portugal, on the other hand, has been increasingly investing in renewable energy sector. When we can analyze hydropower, wind, solar, and now I will go more depth about hydropower and photovoltaic panel. In theory, dams are built on the larger rivers that have a considerable drop in elevation. The dam starts locked of water behind the reservoir. Near the bottom of them, there is a water stake. Hydroelectric power, no. A turbine, no. A turbine converts electrical mechanic flowing water, converts mechanical into okay into mechanical energy. A hydroelectric generator converts electronical and it converts mechanical energy into electricity. The operation of a generator is based in Faraday's laws. With these laws, we can conclude that when a magnet is moved past a conductor, it causes electricity to flow. In a large generator, electromagnets are made by circulating direct current through loops of wire around the state of magnetic stimulation. Hydropower. A steps generator. The water turns the turbine linked to axis of the generator machine. The rotor has many permanent magnets attached to the turbine shaft and rotates at fixed speed. The stator has coils which receive the induction voltage. This in turn causes electricity to flow and the voltage to the load and generated terminals. Transform responsible for electrical long distance. Solar panels. Solar panels are devices that convert light into electricity. Okay. solar cells are composed for two types of semiconductors, N-type and P-type, negative or positive. Um, Types are joined together, created a p-n junction. By joining these two types of semiconductors, electrical field is forming the region of the junction as electrons move to the positive side and the holes move to the negative side. Light is composed of photons, which are simple small bundles of electromagnetic radiation or energy. These photons can be absorbed by photovoltaic cell. Another steps, photovoltaic, sunlight, electrical generation, solar inverter, breaker box, a Brownback box.
Okay, so now I will take the lead and I will be talking about waste, bio-waste, and composting and how much of our trash can actually be useful and used in a productive way. 2.1 billion tons of municipal waste is produced worldwide. Just a little side note, municipal waste is defined as waste collected and treated by or for municipalities. Here's a graph of our global waste composition. Here we can see that um, the biggest slice of this chart is food and greens, which is actually bio-waste, but we will get there in a second. Still talking about statistics, most of the global waste that I just talked about ends up in either open dumps or landfills. And this is not a productive way to treat our waste at all, because it can actually be used to achieve much greater things. So, what are the steps towards a sustainable waste management? First of all, we need to reduce our waste production as a whole. In Portugal, there already are a few institutions that aim to reduce waste. These that I'm showing here aim to reduce food waste. You might know a few of them. Then we have STRAE, which is joined in Portugal and north of Portugal and Spain, which aims to reduce electronic waste. So they take used electronics or ruined electronics and they either fix them or they take some of the materials that would actually be toxic in recycling and they repurpose them and sell them. That way, trying to build a circular economy. Then we have Lumana, which some of you might also know, that aims to reduce textile waste. The second step is the treatment and processing of said waste. I will be focusing on bio-waste since, as you saw before, it is the biggest slice of the chart. First of all, what is the definition of bio-waste? Bio-waste is defined as a biodegradable garden and park waste, food and kitchen waste. So it's basically organic matter. The options for bio-waste processing are ever growing since this is a topic that has been very researched, especially in these times. I will only be talking about a few, but in my research I saw a lot of creative ways that I would have never expected to see of using bio-waste. The first one is anaerobic digestion. I'll explain it briefly. So you take bio-waste, you put it inside an anaerobic digester, which is airtight, and then the waste stays there for about 18 to 21 days. This is if we're talking about mostly solid waste, so the wastewater has another way of being processed that I will not mention. Then the waste stays there for about 18 to 21 days, and it creates digestate, which is basically compost. And the fermentation process also produces biogas. This biogas can be used right away, or it can also be filtered and transformed to biomethane, which is more powerful than biogas. And biomethane can also be transformed into biofuel or an alternative to natural gas. In this whole process, no new carbon emissions are made since the trash would already be produced. So again, we are reinforcing a circular economy, which is what we strive for. The next option for bio-waste processing is composting. There are many. What is compost? Compost is decomposed organic matter that can be added to the soil to improve soil quality and fertility. It is a way to return to nature what it produced. There are many different ways of composting. I will be mentioning only a few. So here we can see hot air composting, which is the traditional way of composting. It's in a pile. So you basically take the waste, you put it in a pile mixed with brown matter, which is dead leaves, grass clippings, etc., and it stays there. And this process is dependent of temperature, so it can be divided into three thermal phases. And this one, out of the ones I'm going to talk about, is the one that takes the longest. Next to the other way that I will be talking about, which is dig compost. It's the easiest way to compost. You dig a hole in the ground, you put the trash inside, then you put the brown matter on top, and that's it. You just wait for it to decompose over time. Then we also have tumbler composting, which is another way of hot composting, but it is inside of a metal container, so it retains heat better and it's faster than the pile composting because of that. Amongst many others. I will also be talking about vermicomposting. Vermicomposting uses worms to digest organic matter, and the worm castings, which are basically worm poop, is used as the compost. Some of the advantages of vermicomposting compared to the other ways that I talked about are that it is a faster process comparatively to traditional composting since it is dependent on the worm's digestive system. It can also be applied to smaller or larger scales. So imagine if you don't have access to a backyard to do any of the other ways I talked about, then you can just have a small container like this where you have worms and you can do your composting in a small container in an apartment, for example. Also, less labor is needed since the worms do the job for you. Here are the two species of worms typically used for vermicomposting. We have red wiggler worms and earthworms. You can use others, but these have proven to be the most efficient. For our project, we started our own compost bin for the next part of our project that you will be seeing next semester, so stay tuned for that. But we aim to produce compost through vermicomposting. So here's a little video of how that is going.
On the 21st of October 2021, we started our very own vermicomposter. With some mistakes along the way, and some tearful moments too, this is how it went. But before that, there were some preparations to make. First, a lot of research went into it. After the research, we got a suitable container and added holes to the top for air circulation. Then was the most crucial step, to acquire the worms. For that, an acquaintance was kind enough to give us some, about 25 to 50, from an existing vermicomposter. And we were set. On a school day afternoon, all four of us gathered to get our project up and going. We got some dead leaves from around the school canteen, an old newspaper from the library, and some dirt from the school vegetable garden. Next, we cut the newspaper and the leaves into smaller pieces. Although, now we know that they were not nearly small enough and took longer to break down because of that. We added them to the bin to make the worm bed. Also, this is way too much paper. Please don't do this. We watered the bed for some humidity, and it was finally comfortable for our stars, the worms, aka Friedrichs. For our bin, we used red wiggler worms. We added our food scraps, coffee grinds, apple core, cucumber peels, and banana peels. Keep them in mind because they'll come up in a bit. Finally, more bedding on top and some more water. And off to the biology lab room it goes. On day 8, as soon as we stepped foot in the lab, an unpleasant smell welcomed us, which is not supposed to happen, by the way. After inspecting a bit, we concluded the culprit were the banana peels. I told you they were coming back. so we took them out and never added banana peels ever again. 'Cause trauma. Day 14. We added more dirt out of fear. By day 19, we had our first mold incident. We took out the mold we could find, and also a napkin previously added that seemed to be storing way too much moisture, contributing to the mold. After seeing the mold, we were pretty discouraged. However, with every bad comes a good. For the first time, we saw what seemed like a baby worm, which was a ray of hope since it meant the environment was favorable and the worms were reproducing. From day 26 onwards, we measured both the temperature of the compost and the room temperature. Here's a little graphic of how that went. Pretty controversial if you ask me. Dreadful day 40. Disaster day. No, I'm being overdramatic. But as soon as we opened the bin lid, we were faced with the surface covered, and I mean covered with mold. It was probably due to excessive water from the week prior's food scraps that were still half frozen. Big mistake. Frozen content should not be added to the compost, as it will not only add too much water that will melt over time, but it will also lower the temperature of the compost, and that may be detrimental to the worms. After 2 days, the humidity stabilized, meaning whatever we did worked. Our bin surely is a favorable environment to mold, as Mr. M made an appearance once again. And once again, we took him out. On day 56, we found something new. We saw what we later found out to be worm cocoons. We observed them both through a magnifier and a microscope, but couldn't come to clear conclusions of what we saw since the cocoons were covered with dirt. We did, however, see both an empty cocoon and a full cocoon, which was very cool to observe, and I will confirm it looked like a popped tiny water balloon and a full tiny water balloon respectively. Here are some images of some of the things we saw in the microscope. It has been 89 days as of making this video since we started this process, and our composting is still going strong. We are not sure when we will be able to collect our first batch of compost, but it surely won't be that long from now. Meanwhile, our Frederiks were able to spend Christmas break with one of our members. Here they are having a great time next to the Christmas tree. They were fortunate enough to transition into the new year in a cozy home. We will see their compost doing its magic very soon, so stay tuned for what's to come.
Thank you.
We made a little quiz, but we don't know if we have time to play it.
What time does it bring? I never know. 5 minutes.
Não, acho que não.
Não tem como.
Ô, Tei, vou parar aqui, tá?